Good to go? All right. So the PFA validation functionality goes live for you all on February 24th, and we're here today to help you get ready for it. So starting January 27th, your departments will join us in person to begin the configuration validation in preparation for our go live. And we have some SMEs here today who will talk to you about what the go live means to you and how it's going to affect your department. So it's going to be in the Jade Auditorium at Fiscal 2000 Evergreen. You're going to have an assigned week, and then you'll attend between 9 to 5 starting on Monday, and then you can go until you finish. I know we have some departments saying, can we come in on Tuesday? You can, but we don't recommend it, as you may not have enough time to finish. We've had departments that take the full week, sometimes even longer. So we do recommend you come in. We will have a lunch break between 12 and 1. If you have a question about when your department is supposed to come, we've got this on ServiceNow for you available, and you'll see we will also be sending out the invitations today where you'll get your specific week sent to your departments based on who you identify as participants. So you'll see here, if you're a department like DSS who does accounting for another department, SCDD, then you would come in first to do the first BU, and then if you wanted to, you can start doing the other BU. If you guys have any concerns about the week, about availability, please let us know as soon as possible, and we'll do what we can to work with you. All right, so who should you send to these sessions? You'd want to send at least one person who runs your labor distribution. You'd want to send at least one person who processes your allocations, and at least one person who validates your PFA. And you'll see the roles below. Because of space issues, we are limiting attendees to only 4 people per department. And if you have any concerns with that, you can also let us know. But we've been pretty strict about it because we do have a lot of departments coming in at the same time. All right, so for us to be able to send the invitations, we need to know who you would like to identify. And so if you're a department liaison, please get in touch with the group in your department who runs your labor distribution allocations and see which of your staff you would like to send. We have a task out there right now. It was sent out yesterday to department liaisons that it will be due on 1/17 for you to identify participants. The moment that we get those participants, we will be sending out invitations. So you'll have calendar invites to the staff that are identified. Does anybody have any questions on what we just said? We have a question in the room. I don't know if we have mics. Someone has their hand up. So we just had a question. It was, I have an issue on the week that I'm scheduled. Let's go back to that, where I'm available on one of the weeks, but not the other, not the one that I'm scheduled on. And is there anything that we can do? So in that case, we will do our best to work with you, and we'll probably be able to. We've got a little bit of contingency built in for that case. Please contact us at fiscal.cmo@fiscal.ca.gov as soon as possible with your information, and we'll make sure we can contact you directly and have a discussion about it. All right, with that said, please fill out BUSN948 and return it as soon as possible. Your completion of this task is critical for us to be able to do our scheduling between the different groups, deal with the cases where people may not be able to fit. Some of this is a little bit of a first come, first serve, so we really try to help departments as best as possible. So please fill out today if you can. All right, and then in the session, we're going to have experts from SEO, Fiscal, and Finance to support you. So when you come in the first day, you'll have the help that you need and any questions related to your labor distribution, your allocations, or your PFA. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Kathy Brown from Fiscal.
Morning, everyone. My name is Kathy Brown. I'm one of the project managers supporting the BP45 PFA implementation. So the expectations for the session that you're going to attend, we created a list of what we expect for the departments to perform for their validation. So, of course, we want you to confirm that your PFA configuration is accurate. We want you to enter a PAC or personal activity sheet if you currently use it. If you don't, you can obviously skip that step. Then we're going to have you run your labor distribution process. And if you use any statistic journals, we're going to want you to enter those. Again, if you use them, we want you to enter them, but if not, you can skip that step. We'll then have you run your allocations. We'll have you analyze and confirm your allocations and your PFA balances are accurate. We have some queries that you can run to perform that validation. We also have validation of the PFA error report. Most of those are related to budget errors. So if you're trying to PFA something that's not in the PFA tree, you'll get an error. Of course, communication is extremely important. So we want you to, when you're in the room and in the session, we want you to communicate any issues you might be having, any concerns, any questions. Like Corey mentioned earlier, we'll have SMEs in the room to assist you. We want to get any concerns you have resolved as soon as possible in order to make the go live date. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to ask you to certify and sign off that you completed the PFA validation. Oh, questions. Hold on, somebody will bring you a microphone behind you, I think. Was there some over there too?
Are you going to have us enter the PFA from scratch, or are we going to get copies of our current, what's currently in the system right now?
So are you talking about your PFA plan at the department that we'll ask you to bring with you, or are you talking about validating that in Fiscal?
Validating it in Fiscal. So you're having us enter the personal activity sheet and run labor distribution. Are we going to get a copy of what's in production in order to do that, or do we have to enter it in the test environment?
So it'll already be loaded in the test environment. So what the team has done is when the departments show up, they'll either give you a printout or have it on a whiteboard or both, and they'll tell you what accounting period you're working in the test environment to be able to run labor and to run your allocations using this new BP45 implementation. So the only thing we need the departments to bring is your current PFA plan or your letter, so you can use that to validate against the tree that's created in Fiscal. And then in Fiscal, we can show you, or I think it's even in the PowerPoint about how to go to budget overview and run that so that you can see and do that validation.
And statistics as well, or what's loaded in the system will be there?
Everything, whatever accounting period they tell you to work in, but statistics you would be entering every month. So I
enter them once a year.
Oh, so then it should be in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been waiting for 3 months for my new approved PFA plan.
Oh, okay.
So which one shall I bring?
So I would say bring both, because we'll have SEO in the room with us, and they can reach out directly to your SEO analyst and find out what's going on and maybe hopefully expedite that process for you.
And if they don't, and we don't have it approved by the time this is, I can't go live.
You're correct. It would have to be approved and the tree would have to be updated because otherwise this functionality won't work for you. And you'll get those errors I was talking about earlier, you will encounter them.
Yes, I have lots of funds that are not currently on my PFA plan.
So we need to, can you write that down so I can, thank you. Okay.
So we do a stats journal every month.
Okay.
But usually what I do is I copy the last one and make any adjustments to it as needed. Will there be the copy of last month's in there so that I don't have to enter the whole journal entry from scratch? Because it gets kind of lengthy.
Oh, that's right. So the cutoff, I forgot to mention that. So the cutoff the data that we have, that's a good question. The data that we have in the lower level test environment is captured as of October 15th, sorry. So if it was in production as of October 15th, then it was copied over into the test environment. If not, then you would have to manually enter it.
It's there.
Okay, awesome. Video? Okay. So this slide is showing your PFA tree report. So I know it's kind of small. We just wanted to give you an example of what the report's going to look like. So this talks about the materials, and we kind of went over this just here recently about what materials the department would be helpful for the department to bring. Like I stated, we'd want the department to bring their last approved PFA letter and their recent approved PFA transaction request. If there's something you've submitted to the SCO like Heather brought up and you haven't received this response, please bring that with you so we can try and work it out in the Jade room and see if we can expedite anything. We're asking departments to bring any source documents you need, statistic journals, if you need to enter them from scratch, any current year general ledger entries that you enter manually that are PFA'd, and any personal activity sheets if you need to enter them. So we'll ask you to bring a detailed list of your appropriation items that you currently submit for PFA. This is where we can, I think we have a slide that shows you how to go to the budget details and commitment control, and under CC Approp, you can get that information. What I would suggest is running it each by enactment year, so it's cleaner when you're comparing it to the PFA tree, because that's how the PFA tree is done, is by enactment year. So this shows the budget details screen where you're going and you can obtain that information. So from this screen that it's showing on the budget details, and it prompts you on our example to go by year of enactment, and you'll see what I call a little mini spreadsheet, and you can click on that for Excel and it'll download it for you into Excel. Yes. Oh, hold on, let them get you a microphone, sorry.
On the PFA tree, do we currently have one in our agency system right now? Because we ran one, we didn't see one.
So it is not live in production yet. It's only until once you go live, then you'll have access to it. But until then, it's only in the lower level test environment. So today, departments follow a 4-step process for PFA. As all of you most likely know, your PFA is a plan proposed by departments to allocate costs. Each PFA request includes one primary appropriation and one or more special items of appropriation. So when it talks about running the PFA report in Fiscal, I think they're not talking about the PFA tree report. So there's a little bit of confusion there. So currently in Fiscal, you have access to a PFA report to ensure that the transactions are run in Fiscal and are reflected in that PFA report. Departments then validate that PFA report to determine that is correct, and that adjustments are posted through GL, labor distribution, and allocation journals. So currently you're using the PFA report to manually populate paper transaction requests sent to SCO. Once the interface goes live in July 1st, 2020, paper will no longer be accepted. And there'd be a different communication that would come out to let you guys know that the interface has gone live. So departments currently process their PFA and Fiscal before closing their period. So of course this is similar to your month-end close process. So we want you to confirm all subsystem transactions are posted and the period is closed. You want to close your subsystems and run your labor distribution process, run allocations, review and post your allocation journals, perform your reconciliations, and then once validated, you're going to submit your PFA transaction request to SCO. Okay, so this talks about when you go live with the PFA validation, we want to make sure that the Fiscal configuration matches your PFA letter. So your PFA validation enforces that you're using one and only one primary item of appropriation per PFA transaction, that your debits and credits between the primary item of appropriation and corresponding special items of appropriation balance. Your PFA validation will occur in Fiscal on eligible labor distribution, allocation, and manual GL journals that go through the PFA process. And then it gives some examples below about all labor transactions, only specific allocation steps have been identified as having a PFA impact, and your GL journals with SCO type of transaction PFA, CARE, and ESAD will be reflected. Questions? Okay, so using this PFA validation tool is going to change your business process. So that's when you come in, that's why we want you to use your approved PFA letters to make sure that they match the PFA trees in Fiscal, because the system will now be performing a systematic validation of the PFA transactions to ensure they're in accordance with your approved PFA letter. Your PFA validation will systematically check online manual GL journals that go through the PFA process, labor distribution, and your allocation GL journals to ensure they follow your PFA letter. Journals will now need to be split by primary item of appropriation into multiple journals to pass PFA validation. So that's why we talked about the enactment year and doing it by enactment year. So we can give you more clarification when you come in for testing. The question was needing more information about item number 3. So item number 3 is basically talking about before you didn't have an enactment year on your PFA. So now when you do your transactions, it's going to be by enactment year. Okay.
So for the PFA, the journals and Fiscal, you're going to have to break them apart like you do your transaction requests when you send them to SCO. Because right now, when you send your PFA transaction request to SCO, you have one for ENY 2019, one for 2018, one for 2017. So you're going to have to do the same type of concept in GL. You're going to have one journal that deals just with clearing 2019 and its distributions, one for clearing 2018, one for clearing 2017. Right. So
that should be fine. And that,
right.
So the question is departments have continuous appropriation in fiscal years within the enactment year that you're concerned with this PFA validation process capturing, it will capture that information. So it does have to be by enactment year, but that the fiscal year should fall within that authority. Does that make sense? That didn't make sense.
No.
So made sense in here.
Yeah.
So in your case, when you have continuous appropriation, say you have an item that has ENY 1985, and you're allowed to allocate to it from clearing 2019 and 2018. You would just have to make sure that the budget period is correct in each of those journals to match that clearing enactment year and budget period. You can combine the clearing with its allowable distributions in one journal, but you cannot have multiple clearing ENYs with their distributions in the same. So,
which is what we do now.
right.
Yeah. I mean, we do that now. We have, because I have to break up that enactment year into 2 to 3 different fiscal years. So actually it's fiscal years, not enactment years. Because you do your PFA now by fiscal years of what's going on. It's the enactment year for the clearing account that you're using, but you're actually doing it by fiscal years because your enactment year is different.
So keep in mind, in Fiscal, your fiscal year is going to be your budget period. So that's what you need to watch when you're doing that.
Right.
So your enactment year is your authority, but if you're going by fiscal year, then you're going to have to watch the budget period.
Okay. No, she's saying that you budget period. Okay, yeah, which is your fiscal period. Okay.
Good question. And we realize this is a change. That's why we're bringing departments in to do this testing. So this is part of the STO implementation. You guys are going to see how fast I talk. Okay, so let me try and get through this before this bumps me off.
Question.
I did hit the snooze. Oh, you guys are going to get to see me panic.
Question.
Okay. So let me hurry up and get through this. Sorry
Hi,
about
Kathy. We have a question here.
Who's talking? Oh, I'm like, where do I go?
Hi, will this still allow us, the new process will still allow us to submit more than one PFA each month?
If that's how you're currently set up, then yes, it just has to be broken down now by enactment year.
Okay.
And keep in mind, come July, there will be no more paper. Did I miss something? So your PFA validation. Your PFA allocation, thank you, Monica. And fiscal departments, I spoke to this earlier, fiscal departments will continue to submit their PFA transactions to SEO via paper until the July 2020 release. Whoop. I'm stuck. I liked him better than me. So departments currently using year-to-date as an allocation basis will be reaching out to you separately to determine whether with the department if you can't switch to period and you must remain year-to-date. So we do have a solution for that. Like I said, we will reach out to you. Departments that require running default 0 will need to continue using year-to-date since the period allocation basis uses default 1. So departments can change their allocation basis from year-to-date to period if the basis does not change each month. And that's, for an example, that's statistics. And cost pools are cleared each month. So beginning July 2020, departments can then return to using the year-to-date allocation basis.
Our department right now is set up as a per for the current year and year-to-date for the prior year. That 17 and 18 is year-to-date.
Okay.
And current year is per. Is that still doable? We can still continue doing that come with this PFA.
the PFA process will still work. We'll just need to talk to you about your business processes and determine if any additional configuration needs to happen.
Okay. And that will happen during validation, the
Yep,
discussion?
exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
So this slide just shows the changes for before and after. So we want you to know that there's going to be 3 groups added: your pre-book, your rev book, and your post-book. This explains more about the changes from changing your time span from year to date to period. We talked about default 0, the new chart field book code, which is used to identify the fiscal year, which was brought up by the department. This talks about your allocation processing, that you're going to use 2 different processes. You're going to use your PSFS allocations, except for post-book code. Post-book, you're going to use the ZZA LLC. That includes the allocation run, PFA validation, and journal editing. Sorry, I'm trying to speed through this before it closes on me. So this is the list of the PFA budget exceptions I was talking about. Like I said, all of them are related to failing with budget checks. So that's why we want to make sure that your plan matches the PFA tree in Fiscal, and so that when you have PFA transactions, they'll successfully process and post. This talks about post-go-live activities. Departments know if you update a PFA letter, that's got to go through DOF and SDO. Any Fiscal configuration, you do a CMR, it would come to Fiscal. ServiceNow incident. You're updating a PFA letter, the department, of course, does that, and they send it to DOF and SDO for approval. The PFA validation tool, if any changes need to be made to that, that goes to SDO, Fiscal SDO. Any allocation configurations would go to Fiscal. Allocation statistics and labor distribution are handled by the department. So any questions? Yeah. So I realize it's a lot of information given to the department. It probably didn't make it any easier that I sped up during the end. A lot of it will be more clear when you come in the session and we can actually show you. I know I'm more of a hands-on person than just talking through something. And we'll take you step by step. We'll take you first through validating your PFA, using the tool versus your PFA plan and the budget details report. Then we'll take you through running labor distribution. We'll have labor SMEs in the room in case any errors are encountered there. Of course, don't forget about your activity sheets. If you use them, then we'll have you run your allocations and any statistic journals. So we'll be with you every step of the way. So if an error is encountered, then we'll resolve that error. But you'll be shown each step of the way. And I believe we created like a checklist for the departments to use, so you won't have to remember everything. So it guides you through what your first step is, what your next step, all the way to the end process. Questions?
So what's more important, finishing financial statements for 18-19 or doing this?
I can't make that decision
I know
for
you
the
can't,
department.
but this is going to prevent us, all the people that need to come do this need to be working on financial statements.
So let me talk to you offline, and we can discuss it. But that's it's a valid point and a valid concern.
I want to go back to the default 0 in the year-to-date allocation.
Okay.
Because we're set up the year-to-date allocation, but I haven't set up current year yet. So should we just copy what we had in the previous to the current, or should we change it to period?
So you don't have to do anything. The BP45 team will set it up for you in the lower level test environment. If you're currently year-to-date, then we'll be reaching out to you to have a discussion about whether your department requires that you stay on year-to-date, or whether you could switch to period for the current year.
And they're going to contact us soon?
Yes.
Like next week?
I would say either this week or next week, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Your year-to-date? I thought they were periods. I'm talking about water board for those of you not here.
For default 1, your time span. So if you're running default 1 year-to-date, typically you run default 0 first, copy rev. For encumbrances, everybody does, yeah. Right, but for the switch, you'd be switching period 1. If you're going to start with the PFA validation with July allocations, you can stay year-to-date the whole fiscal year. It wouldn't be a change.
Prior to the validation, would it be possible for us to know which period we will be using for validation? Because we're already close through period 5.
So we can we do that? Can we send out, that would be another communication, bless you. We can, if you would talk to us after and let us know your department, we can certainly get you that information if you want to know ahead of time. And it would be as of October 15th, whatever your most current closing accounting period was, that's what it will be in the lower level test environment.
Well, our most recent is period 5, and we're now working on period 6, which is December 2019.
Right, but in as of October 15th, do you know what period? And you may not, and that's fine. But that's the logic behind it, is whatever period you close as of October 15th would be the period that they're most likely going to use.
Then, as of October 15, we haven't run costs for 19 yet. We started running costs in like November.
And that's okay.
Okay. And then if there are transactions that we know impact the PFA and that is not on the sample, are we allowed to post entries during validation?
I would say most definitely bring them and enter them so we can make sure that they go through and they process and post.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Anybody online? One second.
Okay, the first question is, let's say you have recent items for ENY, fiscal year 2018, but for ENY fiscal 2019, you're fine. Can you just PFA validation 1 ENY?
So if I understand that correctly, you have a is that the same as a fiscal year under enactment year? Is that what that's trying to ask? So as long as you currently have the authority to make that PFA transaction, you should that's why we're having the sessions. You should still have that functionality available to you systematically. I don't know if I answered.
For that person who asked that question, if they have any follow-up questions, feel free to send them in. The next question is, what about for departments that have PFA estimates and we offset actuals against our estimates?
I know that I have an answer for that.
So some of the departments that are doing their PFA estimates, they're running cost all the way up until the last step before copy to mod. They validate the results, and then before they run the default 3 for copy to mod, they're reversing their PFA estimates. So that way they're not overexpended.
And do we know if that functionality is still going to be available with the 2020 go live, that PFA estimates will still be?
Yes, because starting July 1st, SCO is expecting departments to enter all their estimates in GL.
Okay.
The third question we have is, what's the process for prior month PFAs after go live? We've only sent PFAs through June 2019 so far.
So that shouldn't be a problem. It's as of your go live date. So if you're testing in group 4, can somebody refresh my memory what the go live date is? Thank you. Okay, so as of February 24th, then that's when it'll start going through the PFA validation, regardless if it's prior month or not, or prior year too. Yes. But again, if it's a concern, bring the documents with you so that we can test it and make sure that there's no issues or concerns with it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Everybody, oh, I forgot, sorry. Everybody looks so happy.
In this fiscal year, we haven't entered any of our statistical allocation information in, so how does that impact our testing?
So you'll need to bring that information with you and enter it in
And
the
load
in
it
the,
all into
in the
test
test
environment?
environment. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and normally departments are able to complete the process within the 5 days, 5 business days. But we have 2 weeks slotted. So say you're in the first week and you're not able to finish, we have the second week. If you're in the second week, you're not able to finish, we also have a contingency week. So the departments are going to be given plenty of time to make sure that this functionality fits their needs. So that's all I have. Does anybody have anything else, any additional questions? Sorry about the technical difficulties. Anybody who knows me knows I can speak really fast. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. But if that's all, thank you for attending. Thank you for your patience, and we will see you in next month.